What's up, guys? Welcome to the NorCal Sports Report here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And today, we're going to be talking in depth about the San Francisco 49ers and their recent off-season moves, because yes, their season is over, sadly enough as it is. We're going to be joined by Sterling Bennett, host of 49ers Access Podcast. You can find him wherever you find podcasts and over on YouTube as well. And he covers the Niners for 95.7 The Game. But yes, the Niners are making changes to their teams, dramatic changes that are going to change the course of their season next season, that is. We're also going to talk about the San Francisco Giants and some of the free agent moves that they need to do in order to become competitive enough to challenge for that wild card spot. I'm also going to touch on a little bit of the Golden State Warriors towards the end of the show, guys. This is the NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Let's do this. What's up, guys? Welcome to the NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I want to thank everyone who's tuning in right now, and he'll tune in later. I love doing this show. I love being able to talk to you guys and talk about our favorite teams, namely the Niners, the Giants, and the Warriors. Warriors aren't looking so hot right now. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but the Niners have a heartbeat right now, and more than that, they're kicking right now, and they're making moves to their roster and their coaching staff, and I'm happy to see that they didn't waste any time in making these changes, and we're going to talk about all of that, a little bit after the break when we're joined by Sterling Bennett, host of 49ers Access, and who covers the Niners for 95.7 The Game. But before we do all of that, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. It's a jerky that's on a whole nother planet. You can order this premium jerky over at planetjerky.net or follow them on Instagram at planetjerky over on Instagram. We're also brought to you by Seal the Deal Wax Seals from Cecilia B. If you want to place an order for the wax seals, head on over to iesportsradio.com /Seal the Deal Wax Seals. You can also follow this account over on Instagram at @SealTheDeal_Wax Seals. And of course, we're also brought to you by Vital Apparel. IE Sports is proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR, all in caps, to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. And mental health is a real thing. I've actually done a number of fundraisers in order to support AFSP over on my other channel, which is the Nicotina Network. It's a pop culture channel. So it's a real thing. And I fully endorse Vital Apparel and really anyone who supports care for mental health. It's a real thing, guys. It really is. And guys, don't forget to follow us on X, IG, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, over at IE Sports Radio. You can also go to iesportsradio.com and check out our website. There you'll find a full catalog of all the shows we have to offer here on IE Sports Radio. You can also head on over to iesportsradio /shop, where you can buy merchandise, such as t-shirts, hats, sweatshirts to help support the channel. And I appreciate everyone who goes on there and checks that out, because it's really well worth it. It really is. And of course, you can find all of these shows on wherever you find podcasts, may it be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Pocket Cast, wherever you find podcasts, you'll find IE Sports Radio. And of course, you'll find this show as well, which is the NorCal Sports Report. One of many shows that we have to offer here on IE Sports Radio. And one last thing, too, we're also brought to you by our newest sponsor, which is Raw Nutrition Supplements. Go to getrawnutrition.com and use promo code IESR to get 10% off the nutritional supplements. So definitely check that out. That's super awesome, by the way. Good job, Larry. When we come back, we're going to have Sterling Bennett, host of 49ers Access, who covers the Niners for 95.7 The Game. We're going to be talking in depth about the 49ers, what went wrong this season, and discuss some of the moves they pulled off so far this offseason for the San Francisco 49ers. Guys, you're listening to the NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop, including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
Minutes past the hour here on the NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio. I'm joined by none other than Sterling Bennett, host of 49ers Access podcast. He also covers the Niners for 95.7 The Game. Sterling, man, what's going on?
Nothing much, just sitting back and watching the 2025 offseason unfold for the San Francisco 49ers and living in a world where we don't have to see Brian Schneider coach special teams for this roster ever again. It's a great day to be a Niner fan.
Let's talk about that too. So obviously breaking news has happened, yesterday or the day before. The Niners are planning to make big changes to their coaching staff. They have fired Brian Schneider as their as their special teams coach. This had to happen. I mean, they were dead last in the league in special teams. Special teams caused a number of problems for the Niners throughout every game this season. It seemed like once the Niners were doing something right, special teams would rear its ugly head every game and have one major fuck up that would put the other team back in the game. It just seemed like every time, right when you were like, man, we're playing really good. Oh, there's a fucked up punt return. Oh, there's bad coverage. Oh, there's a fumble. Getting rid of Schneider, I think, was priority number one. What did you think about his performance this season based on how the special teams performed? And do you think this is the right move for the Niners?
I mean, he had to get fired, right? You cannot have a bottom 15 unit in football 3 consecutive years and it be descending each year. It's like 16th in 2022, it was like 25th last year, then it was like 31, 32 this year, depending on the metric you use to rate special teams. I thought this should have happened during the bye week. It was that bad during the season. It was bad. If you want to salvage your season to a certain extent, obviously, maybe they don't go to the playoffs, but they're somewhat competitive towards the end of the year, at least, and giving themselves a better chance to go to the playoffs. Had special teams not been such a disaster early on in the season. But I equate Brian Schneider to a failed head coach drafting a first-round quarterback as a bust. Mm-hmm. He put his job on the line for Jake Moody. And then you add in every other thing that goes wrong. Blown punt coverages, kickoff returns for touchdowns, fumbles by your punt return unit. You had a kick blocked or two here or there this year. Pivotal and crucial mistakes that cost you. When you think of all that in one big pot, it's like, yeah, how do you not tell this guy to hit the road? And I'm hoping whoever they find, whoever they maybe demote to special teams, wink, wink, Nick Sorensen, maybe it'll be a better, even if it's like the 22nd ranked unit, the 17th ranked unit. You can survive when it's not the second worst unit in football in 2025.
Well, and we saw teams in previous years, when he gets the Green Bay Packers, they had a really bad special teams, and you saw how even that affected that playoff game against the Packers. So this was something that even if, let's say, the Niners were able to squeeze into the playoffs, this would have been a continuous issue into the playoffs. And it probably would have prevented them from getting out of the wild card round based on how they perform. And then it always seemed like, okay, the games in which special teams actually played pretty well, the defense played horrible. Or the offense couldn't get it going. And speaking of defense, I mean, we know, obviously, they've announced that Nick Sorensen has been, I don't want to say fired, but he's been told that he will not return as the defensive coordinator. I thought this was an interesting move because in this case, he's not putting all the blame on Nick Sorensen. He's more or less saying, hey, look, it didn't work out. We had a lot of injuries. We had a lot of players that were not there that we thought would be there. However, this didn't work out, and there are better options with more experience that are available to us. Now, this could be a case where, and Shanahan kind of said it in the presser yesterday that, he really likes Nick Sorensen as a coach and as a person. So the idea was kind of thrown out there that he could be moved into the special teams as a special teams coach. And it's something that fans had even said during the season, hey, promote Brandon Staley and put him in the freaking as a special teams coach. But with the news that Sorensen will not be coming back as the defensive coordinator, first of all, how did you feel about that move? And you think if it's the right move for San Francisco?
I felt pretty good knowing who is out there as possible replacements. I think when you look at this year compared to previous seasons, even dating back to when DeMeco Ryans left and now Steve Wilkes being fired a year ago, the crop of defensive coordinating talent is the best it's been in a long time. Dennis Allen's out there, Salah's on the market again, Jeff Olberg may be out there as well, Luana Rumo's there's so much elite level defensive play calling that is looking for jobs this offseason. I think it's the right move to, in a way, demote Nick Sorensen. But I also, and I've been talking about this for a long time, that I didn't think they were going to fire him. I figured that the way the last offseason had kind of worked itself out, that they knew Sorensen was the ultimate fallback option. And putting him in as a defensive coordinator when he probably didn't deserve the job was unfair to him. It was like, hey, we don't have any other options. Go out there and get it done. We want to use a guy that our roster already knows well, that likes. And I think that this is coming down to, like any job, some people just are not, I guess you can say, built for a certain role, fit for a certain role. I think Nick Sorensen really fits as the go get the ball kind of coordinator, if you will, or the coach, leading those go get the ball drills and stuff. You watch this team when he left that role and was given the defensive coordinator job, their takeaways tanked. A double-digit drop from 2023. So I'm hoping that maybe he can slide back into that role in 2025, and hopefully whoever they bring in is a mastermind defensive coordinator where Sorensen can kind of build off of and kind of aid that mastermind rather than trying to mastermind himself.
Well, and here's some of the stats as well. I mean, we look at the 49ers defense in 2024, had 37 sacks, 11 interceptions, 124.6 yards rushing allowed, and 192.8 passing allowed. In 2023, under Steve Wilkes, we had 48 sacks compared to 37, 22 interceptions compared to 11, 89.7 yards allowed on the ground, and 214 through the air. So, I mean, I guess you can argue that, well, they gave up less through the air. But here's the thing is that obviously you see a big drop-off in production from the defense. Now, one could argue, well, you didn't have Javon Hargrave. I don't know if that was the defining injury for the defense. Charvarius Ward was out multiple times. Talanoa Hufanga was out multiple times. We didn't have Dre Greenlaw. And so I think that some of those things went into consideration when it came to making this decision. But it's not just about the numbers. When you look at the play of the defense, especially on third down, especially in the red zone, they were awful. I had no faith. Most fans had no faith that if the other team got into the red zone, that we were going to stop them. I mean, it just wasn't going to happen. It just wasn't there. A lot of soft coverage I felt from Nick Sorensen. And I agree. I felt like this guy was put in a position sort of to fail because, I mean, look, you went for Bill Belichick. He said no. You went for Steve Spagnuolo. He said no. I felt there were still other options out there. I think there was, what's his name, Merritt, who they brought in. But instead they go with Nick Sorensen because they don't want to change over the staff. They don't want to change things up. And maybe he convinced them that, he can bring back what DeMeco Ryans and Robert Saleh had brought here. But it obviously didn't work out. The defense never looked quite the same. Maybe except for week one. Week one was the only week where we were like, oh, this team's great. And then it just sort of unraveled from that point moving forward. So, Taryn Rodriguez, host of the SoCal Sports Report, he writes, word of advice, Niners hiring Brandon Staley as defensive coordinator would be a massive mistake. Let me ask you, we know that Brandon Staley was brought in to work with Nick Sorensen, and so we thought, okay, now we got Staley Sorensen. This is a combination thing. That's kind of cool, but it never really seemed to transform into something that was anything good. Do you think that, I mean, I know that Kyle Shanahan had mentioned that he would be a candidate to be interviewed for that position, but do you think this is the right move that, like, maybe he should be given that position, or do you think they should go elsewhere?
I think there is a common respect factor between Shanahan and Brandon Staley. And I think maybe the interview will be out of just common courtesy of like, hey, you've been at DC before. I respect you a lot. I want to see what you have to offer just in case, let's say, Saleh wants to become a head coach elsewhere. Say maybe the other guys you interview don't really fit exactly what you want to do. That said, it's not as if Brandon Staley hasn't had success as a defensive coordinator in the past. I think with the Rams in 2020, it was a really good unit he led, but a lot of people get tainted by his head coaching tenure with the Chargers, where, let's just be honest, he was not built to be a head coach. Like, he just couldn't handle the responsibility of leading the team, leading the defense, and hoping to kind of put together an offensive game plan with his offensive coordinator. So, I would not want Brandon Staley to be my defensive coordinator, but I don't think I'd be entirely against it. Let's say of the 10 potential defensive coordinating candidates, I would not be shocked to hear Brandon Staley make it to the finals in regards to interviews, simply because there's continuity there. And without knowing exactly what Brandon Staley was doing last year on the coaching staff, we know he was involved in the nickel backs and the defensive backs coach, which, if that's all he did, I mean, he did a pretty darn good job coaching Lenore and Bernardo Green and Mustafa. Like, I know a lot of people struggled this year. Brown, Mooney Ward was off the field, and even Isaac Gadem. But for the most part, like, the Niners secondary really wasn't terrible. It was the run defense and kind of those key critical downs, 3rd and 4th downs. But I wouldn't love it, but I'll tell you this, I'm not entirely against it, and I wouldn't be shocked to see it actually happen this offseason.
Well, there was some breaking news from Josina Anderson. Look, this really got blown out of proportion. Josina Anderson posted this, and everyone was like, that's it, that's a done deal. It really wasn't, but I mean, even I posted it. Hey, why not? The 49ers are expected to make Saleh an offer at the defensive coordinator position. Now, there was another report today that talked about how Robert Saleh wants to do his head coaching interviews before he commits to anything. We know he has interviews with Jacksonville and the Las Vegas Raiders. I swear to God, if Trent Baalke snatches this guy, I swear he's doing it just to piss off the Niners. I swear to God. But I don't see him getting either one of these jobs. I mean, maybe the Las Vegas Raiders, but obviously there's a coaching hierarchy that everybody wants to get who was ahead of him. Obviously, Ben Johnson's probably number one on everyone's list. He's going to get one of those 2 spots. But I don't see Robert Saleh getting Jacksonville or getting Las Vegas, and I think that later this week, if he doesn't get those jobs, he's going to come back to San Francisco. But my concern is that I don't want to bring in a guy who is saying, okay, I'm going to come here, I'm going to be a coach, your defensive coordinator, and then next year, if I get a head coaching job, I'm out, which, could actually happen. But if I'm Jed York, I'm like, look, or I should say even John Lynch, I'm going to say, look, dude, I'm going to make sure that you're the highest paid defensive coordinator in the league because I want you here for the long haul. You look over at Kansas City with Steve Spagnuolo. He's been there for how long? Like 10 years? And it's like no one else is leaving. It always feels like the Niners are the organization that people are plucking executives and plucking coaches, and it's not happening in a lot of other places unless they announce, oh, Ben Johnson, he's going to want to be a coach next year. And even last year, he was like, I'm just going to stay here in Detroit. Which I'm going to say this again, and I've said it before. When Ben Johnson leaves Detroit, that will look like an entirely different team. They lean so heavily on him because Dan Campbell doesn't call the plays. He relies on his offensive coordinator. I'm telling you, when that's not there and they have somebody else there who's probably not as good, you're going to see a huge difference in that offense. But I still think that as long as he doesn't get these 2 spots, I think Robert Saleh is the guy that they're going to go with. I mean, Brandon Staley could be the guy, but I think, again, I feel like Brandon Staley is the fallback guy. Like, okay, well, if we don't get this guy, or if we don't get, Anarumo from the Bengals or whatnot, or Gus Bradley, we're going to go with Brandon Staley. He's already here. He's already, in the facility. Let's go with that. Because if they hire a guy like Robert Saleh, I would imagine Brandon Staley might be gone. Like, what is he going to do? Oversee Robert Saleh? No way.
Yeah, it It will be interesting to see if they bring somebody, which all indications are they are trying to bring somebody from outside the building in
Yeah.
rather than promote from within the building. Um, it'll be interesting to see, let's say it is this big personality, Robert Saleh, Dennis Allen, maybe a former head coach that is now kind of reverted back to a defensive coordinator after failing where he previously was. Do they want to kind of rebuild their staff and bring in new defensive backs coach and bring in new assistants? And do they maybe have kind of sweeping altering changes on the defensive coaching staff if they do hire a big personality, big name coordinator? That said, while it certainly seems like the Niners, if the Josina Anderson report is to believe to be true, and we have no reason not to believe it, that he's their number one option. That's who they want.
Mhm.
I do think maybe it's a little safe. Now, this is not me knocking on Robert Saleh at all. He's a great defensive coordinator. With the Jets in San Francisco is clear as day. What he was able to do with both those defenses was top 10 defense, top 5 defense almost every single year. And you did see a difference when he left the Jets last year, although context matters in regards
Yeah.
to that. But I wouldn't be against it. Like, if they hired Saleh, I'd be like, yep, that's awesome. We love Bob Saleh. He's great. We love him here. He'll get the guys hyped up. It'll be this like unfinished business type of kind of reunion, which is awesome to see. That said, I do wonder if it would be a return to the maybe like too safe option where it's like, okay, like you've done this before. It worked. You almost won. But I think I would, and it sounded like Shanahan was open to this more than ever of like having a schematic change, having maybe these like small alterations to the defensive schematics that they run out there in San Francisco. I would look elsewhere if it was me. Like, I would not be waiting to see if Saleh doesn't take a head coaching job and then get burned if he does. If it's me, I want to be proactive. I
Yeah.
want to interview the top of the line guys. Dennis Allen is my number one guy out there. Saleh wants to be in there, fine. See if the Jets will like you. Talk to Ulbrich, talk to Anarumo. Like, there's so many other Matt Eberflus is out there too. There's so many other like key defensive minds where you're like, they may be field head coaches, but these guys are more desperate than Saleh may be. Like, Saleh can wait this thing out. Where like nobody is talking to Matt Eberflus for a head coaching job. No one's talking to Dennis Allen for a head coaching job. And maybe it's just me, and I'm being a little overzealous here, but I have seen what the Chiefs have done to this offense every time they play. It stymies it, it stops it. I want to go get my Steve Spagnuolo, a guy that can line up against every other defense and have a game plan ready to go to execute week in, week out. Well, I think Saleh can do that. My fear is they might get burned by waiting. Hence, why I be proactive in getting somebody else in the building as soon as possible.
Yeah, because it really does feel like that's the guy they want is Robert Saleh, because they know, like you were saying, it's a safer bet that he's been here before. He has a rapport with the players. They trust him. He has an energy. There's a lot of things they like about him, but I agree that waiting for him, I think it's the wrong move. I mean, I would hate for them to wait around and watch all these other coordinators, Jeff Ulbrich, Eberflus, all these guys get picked up, and then they're like, Robert Saleh announced as the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, oh, right. And they're like,
and you have to get Brandon Staley, and it's like, oh crap.
Yeah, exactly. And then we're right back where we started. Now, I don't want to dog on Brandon Staley. He hasn't had the chance to actually run the defense just solely on his own, but I feel like we'd see a lot of the same scheme, same setup, because I mean he was there last year. I can't imagine he just let Nick Sorensen just make every single call and not give him any advice whatsoever. Because I mean he is an assistant coach. But like you said, I would be happy, super excited to get Robert Saleh back. We saw what he did in New York. They had the third best defense in the league season before last. I don't want to say last season because our season's over. 2023. And even this year, I mean, partway through the season, they had a good defense until they got rid of him. Then everything just sort of came off the rails over there. And Jeff Ulbrich took over. But either one, I mean, Jeff Ulbrich, Eberflus, Amaruno, Saleh, and there's plenty of options out there. And they got to get these guys in the room. They can't just wait around because the longer they wait, the more that they just sit on their hands, and it's going to be an issue trying to replace this position. They're just going to re-promote Nick Sorensen. Can you imagine that? Oh my God.
A demotion turns into a re-promotion.
A re-promotion. Yeah, that's what everybody wants. And this was the other news that dropped today that I want to share with you, which was they reached out and have mutual interest. Priority number one, though, is a head coaching job, but would go back to San Francisco as he was a coordinator if that falls through per source, whoever the hell the source is. I think if there is a source or not, I think this is pretty well understood by anybody that, like, hey,
you don't need a source to say that.
You don't need a source to say that. You can just say, hey, look, more than likely he is going to pursue his head coaching jobs and then come back to us. I had a friend of mine on here, Johnny Dell of Johnny Dell's Football Academy over on YouTube, and he felt like Robert Saleh wouldn't get a head coaching job for the next 10 years. And I was like, really? God. But then he's on these lists, but it doesn't mean he's going to get it.
Sure.
But still, I think the Niners, they need to find a way to wrap this up. I mean, look, you could argue, hey, just give him a boatload of money and get him in here. But then again, knowing the Niners are like, well, let's just wait until he's done, and then we can offer him our contract, which would be a team friendly. But he doesn't go against the salary cap, so you might as well just aggressively go after this guy. You know, it's tough to see. And then obviously Brandon Staley's out there as well. I wanted to ask you about Javon Hargrave. Now, we heard in the presser that they plan on cutting Javon Hargrave on the post-June 1st release. Do you think Hargrave will be back with the Niners, or do you think this is the end for Javon Hargrave as a 49er?
I think there is certainly an avenue where he can come back. I think I kind of put him in the same, I guess you could say, vein as Dre Greenlaw. Obviously, Greenlaw takes precedent over Javon Hargrave, but they're two players coming off of serious injuries that may want a 1-year deal, maybe a 2-year deal to rehash their image, to kind of prove to the rest of the league they can still go out there and play and maintain their health. There's certainly both risks to re-sign. I think Hargrave, I don't want to call his tenure a failure. He was a Pro Bowler in 2023, albeit I don't think he earned that honor very much compared to other defensive tackles. That said, I think San Francisco really needs to go find a run-stuffing defensive tackle. I think there is room to maybe go reacquire DJ Jones in the offseason. He's younger, probably going to be cheaper. Maybe you go out a first-round pick or second-round pick as your interior defensive lineman to help beef up your trenches alongside Malik Collins and Jordan Elliott. Like, I don't think bringing back Javon Hargrave, depending on the contract, mind you, which I think will be still pretty pricey for a player of his pedigree. He's a 2-time Pro Bowler. You saw what he did in Philadelphia, saw what he did in Pittsburgh. It really has just been the last couple of years. And even then, he has on his name a 2023 Pro Bowl honor, which he will hold high on the market. But it'll be a market I'll look at pretty closely because I do think San Francisco would like him back. They paid him a massive chunk of change in an offseason where they really didn't have to. Like, they signed him to be the DeForest Buckner of this defense when Kinlaw failed and Buckner got traded. He was supposed to come in and be the replacement. He wasn't that. They need a space eater. I don't think Hargrave is that. I think Malik Collins can do just as good of a job as a pass rusher as Collins or as Hargrave would at a quarter of the price. So I don't think he'll be back, but I do think there is a path where if Hargrave wants to play in a defense that he knows, he's comfortable with, and if they get a star defensive coordinator, maybe that can coerce him to come sign for a cheaper deal to kind of reshape his image again.
Yeah, I just, the only way he's going to come back, in my opinion, is if he comes back for a lot less.
Yeah.
Now, how much is a lot less? Like you were saying, his market value is going to be pretty high, but he's coming off a year in which he was injured almost the entire year.
He played 3 games last year.
He played 3 games. And so his price tag may have come down based on that and based on his performance the year before. It was not up to standard or up to what they thought they were going to get out of Javon Hargrave. I think they thought that Hargrave and Bosa would just wreak havoc on offensive lines, and they really didn't. Instead, teams decided, well, we'll just run right at him, and he can't stop the run anyway. They're like, just keep running at him. He'll get so tired that he can't even pass rush us anymore. And so that was the biggest problem when it came to Javon Hargrave. I think his days are probably over. I don't see him wanting to take a massive pay cut. He'll probably want. I think he'll probably want to test free agency to see what he can get. And I think that Hargrave is a guy that is going to become one of those Chase Young type players where he'll wait around, and then get a 1-year deal to go play for like the Titans, or 1-year deal to come back to Philadelphia or something like that. That's what I think is going to happen. I mean, Philly's 14-3. I mean, they have a chance to go really deep in the playoffs. And if he sees them as a viable option to really get back to where he used to be at and have a very strong year, he could go back to Philly at a low price, knowing that, hey, I'm going to come back here, I'm going to play my ass off, and then get a fat contract the following year from either these guys or another team. Now, looking at other players that could possibly be on the way out, we talk about Charvarius Ward. He had the interview where he talked about how he's suffering from massive PTSD and trauma, obviously off from the death of his daughter, which was horrible. And he also mentioned too that his wife doesn't want to live in California, that it brings up bad memories and bad feelings, and that she doesn't even want to be in the state. After hearing that, do you think there's a chance that he comes back at all, even on a 1-year deal?
No, I don't. The personal trauma for him seems to outweigh his football destination. I think he's from Texas. Maybe I'm wrong there.
Yeah, he is.
I could see a team like, let's say, the Houston Texans, let's say the Dallas Cowboys. Maybe, I hate to say this, but a team like the Kansas City Chiefs may say, hey, we already played here before. You're closer to home. You like the area enough. I can see him maybe taking a 1-year, 2-year flyer on a guy. I know there was reports earlier in the offseason that the Chargers make a lot of sense for him, which a Harbaugh, Devarro Bowman, Charvarius Ward would be pretty nice to see all those guys together, being Niners or former Niners themselves. But I think he'll have a market, but I don't know how big it'll be. That said, I don't think it'll include the 49ers this offseason.
We're talking with Sterling Bennett, host of 49ers Access Podcast. He also covers the Niners for 957 The Game. Guys, we have 138 watching in the room right now. Make sure that you smash the like button and subscribe. And also follow this account over on X, and follow IE Sports Radio over on X, and subscribe to them on YouTube. And you can follow them on Instagram as well. So we talk about Charvarius Ward. We know that in the secondary, you have another guy in Talanoa Hufanga. Now, he did come back towards the end of the year, and I thought it made a huge difference having him out there as opposed to Jair Brown, who continued to struggle this season. It could be the fact that, Wilkes was a defensive backs heavy, favoring coach. Maybe that his defense favored him in his abilities. Either way, do you think that Talanoa Hufanga is a guy that you would spend money on to bring back, or do you just roll with Jair Brown and just go with that because you're going to save a ton of money?
I think the Niners have a lot of faith in Jair Brown. Obviously, they saw him play in 2023 at the end of the year. He picked off Mahomes in the Super Bowl. There is faith in him. He was the incumbent starter this year. The plan was to have him and Hufanga play together, not Mustafa start at all, which we saw how that worked out. That said, I don't look at a sophomore slump from a safety any different from any other player. It happens. Guys have great years and down years. I think Brown is going to be, he's going to want to bounce back in a big way next season. I think that depending on what Hufanga's market is, and I know Kyle Shanahan said they want to bring back both Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw. I just think Hufanga's age, and I know there's been some injuries, but a year after the ACL injury, he hurts his wrist. Then he gets a concussion. Only one of those injuries really scare me, that being the ACL. That said, usually guys are better the second year after they come back from the ACL tear. So I wouldn't be shocked to see his market value a little higher than we think it is or believe it should be. I also wouldn't be shocked to see a team like the Rams or a team like the Chargers. He went to school at USC. A return to SoCal to me is kind of scary. I wouldn't want to see that as Niner fans, but I'm also not tied to the idea that you have to bring back Talanoa Hufanga. I like him. The energy certainly he brings is there. Like you saw the impact he had with Dre Greenlaw on the field against the Rams this year, held a relatively competent Rams offense to 12 points in the rain at Levi's Stadium in a game the offense couldn't score any touchdowns in. I think I would love to have both Hufanga and Greenlaw back for emotional purposes, but I'm also not going to tie myself to a safety that really has a hard time covering the deep ball for a multi-year massive contract.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, we talk about that game against the Rams. You had to win that game. It also brings up memories of Devondre Campbell, who
Oh man,
decided not to come in the game. Unbelievable.
Who tweeted today, mind you?
What was that?
He tweeted today.
He
for the
did.
First time in a long. He did tweet today.
he did, and I actually have it right here. I was going to share that with you. This is what he said today. Oh wait, that's me. He says, "Everybody playing both sides. I don't trust none but myself, this money, and my blick." I told him, I said, "Did you really think you deserved to start over Dre Greenlaw? You were a rental linebacker. Everyone knew that. Everyone knew that when you got here, except for you." I mean, it's kind of like, dude, what did you think was going to happen? Now, somebody was saying, "Oh, well, maybe he got mad because he was also playing behind D. Winters at that time." Well, dude.
Oh,
he didn't play that well. He had some good games. I'll give him that. Against the Cowboys, he played well, and I thought against Tampa Bay he played well. But a lot of guys who are slow and who don't have great who can't break into a speed run really well, they play well in Tampa because it's humid, everything's loose. But the guy was a liability, especially early on this year. He was a huge liability in covering tight ends, covering receivers. He couldn't cover anybody. So yeah, I'm glad he's gone. The guy's a joke. He's a fucking quitter. And I'm sorry, he's a piece of shit. If you tell your team, "I'm not going in because I should be out there starting, I'm unavailable," you know what? It's like, dude, how old are you? You're doing this at the NFL. You're being paid millions of dollars to go out there and play football. More money than most of us will ever see in our lifetime. And that's how you act? It's like, get the hell out of here, dude.
Well, and you know what's crazy is that in that game, so Greenlaw comes back, Campbell gets pissed. Greenlaw plays 30 snaps, just over a half, maybe in that game. Devondre Campbell could have played in that one. Then 4 snaps against Miami. Greenlaw gets hurt again. Campbell could have started the rest of the season.
I know.
Not quit. And I get it. In hindsight's 2020, but it's like, bro, if you just would have come in the game, you would have got exactly what you wanted. Maybe earned yourself a job elsewhere in 2025.
Yeah. And now, who knows? I mean, I still think he gets picked up by somebody, but he's not going to get a contract. He's going to get an invite to. He's going to be the equivalent of if it was the Giants, he would get an invite to spring training. You know what I mean? Like, you can come in here, hang out with us, and we'll see if we like you or not. But look, another player that I wanted to kind of ask you about was Dre Greenlaw. I mean, we saw what he did in the game where he came back. He played his ass off. It made a huge difference. Probably came back way too early than he should have, but he wanted to help the team, which he did. Would you, as GM, would you try your best to bring back Dre Greenlaw? Or do you think that he's used goods and that his health is going to be an issue?
I won't use the term used goods, and I'm going to get killed for this because I love Dre Greenlaw. I have his jersey in my closet. The energy he brings, it's infectious. This defense, this team would have probably been holding that Super Bowl 58 Lombardi trophy had he not gotten hurt against Kansas City. The impact he brings on and off the field means so much to the defense, and especially Fred Warner. Like, you heard all the comments that his players and his teammates made after that game against the Rams. It was like, oh my goodness, we're so happy Greenlaw's back. And there was this sentimental kind of energy around we have our defense finally back in place for this kind of stretch run of the season. That said, I'm not in the business of paying players a large chunk of change and for a long time after an Achilles injury in which he has not proven to be able to play through or be healthy after. My other major concern is, while I love Dre Greenlaw and I want to bring him back for a lot of emotional reasons, I'm also mortified because he tore the right Achilles in the Super Bowl, but his left calf was bothering him the entire 2023 season.
It's not good.
So fast forward to this year, he comes back, and what calf is bothering him? Not the surgically repaired calf. It is the 2023 left calf injury that we thought was going to be a problem. in the Super Bowl. My biggest worry and fear is that if they sign him to, let's say it's a 2-year, $20 million contract, 2-year, $18 million contract, all it takes is one play for a guy that his calf seems to be kind of hanging by a thread. Like, I'd be terrified that you resign him and then boom, the other Achilles goes out. And at that point, you're talking career over, never the same ever again. So I'm open to bringing him back 100%. That deal would have to be so heavily laced with incentives. I'm not giving him a high base salary. There is no high-end guarantee. It's like, look, you have to earn and show us you can actually be healthy for the majority of next season.
And that's the thing too, is that, there's a report right here that talks about how he could be demanding anywhere from 14 to 17 million a year. That's a lot to give a guy who hasn't played since last year, only played a handful of games, has had a ton of injuries his entire career. But when healthy, that's my biggest fear, is that let's say he doesn't get the contract in time from the Niners, that a team that's desperate enough will be like, hey, dude, we'll give you a 4-year deal, or you're getting paid, $15 million a year. Okay, let's do it. It's just because they saw what he can do, and they're so desperate to get an impact player that they give him that contract. I don't know if any team does, but I think that this could be a case similar to what would you say, Brandon Ayuk, or where they think they're worth more. Eric Armstead. I'm not taking a pay cut. I'm worth more. Look what I've done so far. And so that could be a case, which I hope it's not, because I think if he's going to find the most success, it's going to be right here in San Francisco. But like you were saying, they really need to show up that defensive coordinator position, because let's say you bring back Robert Saleh. He knows Robert Saleh. He's played with him before. He might be excited. Like, yeah, this is awesome. So I think they should really bring him back, but it has to be the right price. I'm not giving him 14 to 17 million a year. Like, if he was healthy 100% this year and was a huge impact, yeah, like, okay, this guy's well worth it. But I think some consideration has to be taken into his health. Obviously, there's a saying, the Bears, Raiders, probably the Raiders, or the Commanders, might go after him. I can see the Raiders giving him 17 million. Like, let's do it. Because they just recently announced that not only did they fire Antonio Pierce, but they fired their GM today. Yeah, it's such a shit show over there, like it always is when it's the Raiders. So, I would watch out for the Falcons. Raheem Morris coached with the Rams for a long time. We saw Greenlaw up close. They need a presence in the middle of the field on that defense. The defense struggled in coverage this year a lot. I would not be shocked to watch Raheem Morris go out there and get him. I'd also like to know where those projections come from, because I have a hard time believing that any NFL team is going to give a player off an Achilles tear that got hurt again $14 million. That's a lot of
per
freaking money.
Season.
No way.
Like,
I think $8 million is what I give him. Like $8 million. There we go. That's high for me, because who knows if you're going to last? What if he goes out there and blows his other Achilles, or like every year he gets hurt. Every year.
If it was an $8 million base salary, I'll give you $6 million in incentives. I got no problem with that. If you earn it, I want to pay you your worth. But I'm not going to give you 14 mil per year. Obviously, that's not exactly how contracts are structured. There's guarantees and base and all that stuff. But like, the fact that the per year average may be $14 million a year, like, if that's the case, I am letting him test the market immediately and letting him price himself out of my range if I'm the San Francisco 49ers. That way, you can say, we certainly tried. We had a hard cap on it. He got paid elsewhere. Good on him. That's awesome. We love Dre. But then you get into the conversation of who's the replacement. Is it D. Winters? Is it in the draft? Who do you then look for to be that number 2 linebacker next to Fred Warner in 2025?
Well, and that's what 49ers First Takes is asking as well. Should the Niners draft his replacement, or is he already in the building? I don't think D. Winters is the sole answer, because sort of like Dre Greenlaw, he gets hurt a lot. He was hurt multiple times throughout the year, multiple times through games. You'd see him come up with a cramp, and you're just like, oh my God, this guy. I think he outplayed Devondre Campbell, but that's not saying much when you look at the NFL talent that's out there. They could look to draft somebody, but to me, the draft needs to lean heavily on offensive line, defensive line. That's where they need the most help. Trying to stop this run game. I mean, towards the end of the year, it just seemed like the defensive line was just like, whatever. Evan Anderson, get in there, do your thing. And he was just like, I can only do so much. Malik Collins was like, fuck this, I'm out. They really weren't stopping anybody. And against the Lions, I mean, that's the reason why. I mean, this is it's weird to say this, but to me, that's the reason why we lost the game is because they couldn't stop the running game. The Lions were just running all over us. It was like, okay, well, even though the Niners offense came out and scored a bunch of points, they couldn't stop anybody. And then when we started turning the ball over, it was like, all right, whatever, this is over. And a game where if the Niners were competitive and they played up to their talent level, and let's say had less injuries, this would have been a huge game. You know, a possible playoff preview, but instead it was just kind of like, oh, that was fun. And then by the fourth quarter, I was like, whatever, it's just over. Talking about Brock Purdy, he had a huge game. I think he threw for over 300 yards in that game against the Lions.
Like 370, I think.
Yeah. So when we talk about Brock Purdy, I mean, do you think that this is a guy that, you know, you'd want to bring back? Do you want to invest in, or do you think? Obviously, we've had this discussion before. We talked about playing him on his fourth year. We talked about franchising him, which I remember you said exclusively that was a bad idea to franchise him. But before we get to that, let's go to an interview with Brock Purdy in the locker room, and this is what he had to say about staying with San Francisco.
Like contract talk, which is that a lot of people out there are debating Brock Purdy. He's the greatest. He's the worst. He's it's a big subject now. How good you are. And
so, what are you asking? Sorry.
are you? Good. Do you pay attention to that noise, and how do you feel about it being the subject of all that?
I mean,
debate?
It's there, and obviously just based off of how this year has gone, that's been conversations and the talking points and things like that. But I mean, if you take a step back and realize what has been done the last couple of years, you know, if we're talking about me and my story, like being drafted last and then coming in and helping the team win and reach some pretty big heights, you know, that's something that I can fall back and look on and be like, okay, that's what I've done. And obviously not just by myself. I've had a great supporting cast and everything, and I'm very thankful for that. This year was tough, but like I said, dude, I really do believe that this all happened, and I can grow so much from it and continue to grow into the quarterback that I want to be. And you know, I just turned 25 years old. I feel like there's a lot of you know, areas and improvement that I can have within my game, and I know I can get to, and yeah, so I'm confident in that. So we'll see what happens. Everybody has their own opinion, and that's okay. But for me, I know who I am and what my purpose in life is and what I can do for this organization, and that excites me more than anything.
So he talked a little bit about that, and he wants to be here. He wants to be here for a long haul. He also mentioned in another interview that he wants to get this deal done as soon as possible so that he could be there for OTAs. I also heard word that if the deal doesn't get done, he won't attend OTAs, which is like, here we go again. This is the whole Brandon Ayuk saga, but now it's a quarterback. Do you think that Brock Purdy, is this the guy that you would invest in? You would say, hey, look, I'm going to give you the contract you're looking for. Is this the guy that you say, hey, look, I've seen enough of his play that makes me believe that this is the guy I want to stick with, you know, for the long haul?
Yes, but I think there's a hard cap as to what I'm willing to spend for Brock Purdy. I think fans aren't always honest with themselves when it comes to the quarterback market. Brock Purdy, well, yes, can have an asking price, and San Francisco can say, we're not going to pay you that. He can say, well, I don't make the market. Like Tua did, Trevor Lawrence did, Joe Burrow did, Dak Prescott did. Don't blame me for what they set forth. That said, would I pay Brock Purdy $65 million? I wouldn't. Would I pay him over 60? I wouldn't. I think 55-ish, 53-ish is a pretty good cap. I also believe that fans and even the media that sells, like the Adam Schefter tweet will say, Brock Purdy agrees to a blank year contract with $55 or $65 million per year, when in reality, that really doesn't matter that much. I would not be shocked to see Purdy signed for 4 years, 5 years, whatever it may be, maybe a lower AAV, but a higher total guaranteed compared to, let's say, Tua Tagovailoa. That way, when it's all said and done, he's making more than those quarterbacks, but on a per year basis, making a little bit less to save San Francisco some money on the cap and whatnot. But when it comes to, do I believe in Brock Purdy? Like, that is the crux of this conversation. Do you believe Brock Purdy can lead this team to a Super Bowl? Yes, because he already has. I think that, like, a lot of people, and I get why, like, this year was really hard for Brock for a variety of reasons. No Brandon Ayuk, Pearsall gets shot, Chris McCaffrey doesn't play, Mason gets hurt, Grendo gets hurt, Mitchell gets hurt, no Trent. Like, there's so many things to point to and say, well, like, what do you expect to see happen? But also, I think there is a reality we have to live in and say, Brock's not Joe Burrow, Brock's not Patrick Mahomes, Brock's not Josh Allen, Brock's not Lamar Jackson, and we can't compare him to those guys. That said, I think we also can't erase Brock's 2022 and 2023 season because he happened to struggle in 1 year. I hate that we do that as fans. We live in the now. And sometimes living in the now isn't a bad thing. I think that can cost you a lot. Like, the Giants paid Daniel Jones by living in the now, and it completely destroyed their organization. Saquon goes and looks like the offensive player of the year in Philadelphia. Daniel Jones is now in Minnesota. Like, it can totally burn you, but I think what Brock Purdy has done is head and shoulders above almost every other current quarterback in the NFL, paid or not. He's accomplished more than Tua Tagovailoa ever has, Jordan Love ever has, Jared Goff are probably on the equal playing field, albeit different strengths as a quarterback. And for Brock, he's going to say, look, you don't pay me based on strengths. You pay me based on my production. My production has been better than almost every other quarterback, not named Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, and Burrow. And I think while there are some things you can point to, the injury history, the UCL, the shoulder injury, like, yeah, all those things may tick off a few $1 million here or there. But if you look at what Shanahan said yesterday about Brock Purdy, him tethering himself to Brock's tenure, failure, or success, there is a sense in that building, more so than Trey Lance, more so than Jimmy Garoppolo, and I can argue of every other quarterback Kyle Shanahan has coached, including MVP Matt Ryan, he believes in Brock Purdy the most of all of those quarterbacks he has coached in his previous tenures, whether here or elsewhere. And that, to me, matters. But then you get into the conversation of, well, do you really like Kyle Shanahan? And that's a whole different realm to dive into.
And that's a realm that I think a lot of people love to dive into. Is let's talk about Kyle Shanahan. Let's talk about Kyle.
It's a crutch. It really is a crutch.
It is, and he's not going anywhere. I don't think he did anything this year that would make me say, that's it, I'm done. Get him out of here. Right. Obviously, a lot of things went wrong for Kyle Shanahan. A lot of things didn't work out for Kyle Shanahan. A lot of the play calls that he made where he gambled just didn't work out. And that doesn't bode well for an entire season. But, I mean, he has a rapport of which, he's made 2 Super Bowls. He's been to a bunch of NFC title games. Now, granted, he lost both Super Bowls, but, it is what it is. And also, going back to Brock Purdy, when you look at how he performed at the highest level, he had an incredible game against the Lions in the NFC Championship game. He had a great second half against the Packers in the divisional round. I thought he played extremely well in the Super Bowl, nearly leading them down the field to score a touchdown in overtime. And this is a guy who was Mr. Irrelevant. I mean, I think people forget, like, dude, this is incredible what this guy is doing. Most Mr. Irrelevant players you don't even hear from them. They don't even make the team. So it's pretty incredible what this guy has been able to do and the stats that he's been able to put up. I mean, earlier in the season, he was leading the league in passing yards. And everybody's like, oh, Brock's not the same. His numbers said otherwise. So it's kind of like, I don't know what you want to, like it's either got to be great or it's not good enough. And that's the problem with a lot of the fans and even content creators as well. But hey, everyone's got to do their thing and that's fine. But personally, I think that, I want to keep Brock here because what are your options? Are you going to try to draft a quarterback with the 11th pick in the draft? Probably not.
This quarterback class is not good.
No. And are you going to try to push for Tanner Mordecai? Are you going to try to go out and get Kirk Cousins? Are you going to go out and try Aaron Rodgers? Oh, that'd be the worst thing in the world. So somehow he would manage to get Kyle Shanahan fired mid-season. I was like, oh my God. What's
There'd be
happening?
a ayahuasca party every day in that locker room. And you think Nick Bosa sounds checked out now? Imagine him on ayahuasca after games. It'd be insane.
Insane. And then not only that, but like if you went out and got Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback for this next season, then Robert Saleh's like, yo, I'm out.
Right.
I'm not coming here. Can you imagine? He's going to show up, trying to give him a hug. He's going to push him away again. Oh, my God. It's unbelievable. But we'll see what happens with the Niners as they move forward in their offseason and free agency. Sterling, are you down to stay for one more quick segment on the Giants?
The orange and black, 100%. I'm down.
100%. When we come back, we're going to talk about the San Francisco Giants, some of their offseason moves, and what they still need to do in order to compete in the National League and even the National League West at this point. You're listening to the NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Oops, there we go.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Notorious Law.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That give you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
What's happening, sports fans? Are you a fan of Southern California sports? Are you looking for a show hotter than a hot summer day in California? Then look no further than the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, where I talk about all things Southern California sports. That's right, all sports teams from Southern California. From the hard-hitting tackles of the NFL, to the killer crossovers and big three-pointers of the NBA and WNBA, to the grand slams of the MLB, to the bone-chilling goals of the NHL, and to the booming kicks of the MLS, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show has it all for you. Oh, and let us not forget about the college sports as well. So join me, Taryn Rodriguez, every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Thank you, Taryn. It's 4 minutes past the hour here on the NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And now we're going to shift gears just a bit and talk about the San Francisco Giants. Now, Sterling, recently the Giants missed out on Corbin Burns. He signed with the Arizona Diamondbacks. I believe it was a 6-year deal for a little over $100 million. I forgot the exact terms of it. I'm screwing that one up. But he had a 2-year opt-out. And I think that was probably one of the biggest tipping points for the Giants, is that he probably wanted the same thing. He probably wanted that 2-year opt-out so that he can, garner a bigger contract if he performs well in San Francisco. And really, that's a contract where if something goes wrong and he suffers massive injuries, you're on the hook for 6 years, because he's not going to opt out. He's just going to ride it out. So a 6-year deal for a pitcher, that's a lot. I really can't think of any long-term contract on a pitcher that's really worked out in favor of a team, because pitchers take on so many injuries every single season. What did you think about the Corbin Burns contract? Do you think that the Giants skipped or dodged a bullet, or do you think that they should have made that try to match that offer?
I don't think they dodged a bullet by any means. I think, where they ended up landing, while it's not really a consolation prize. It's okay. I do think, and I believe that Corbin Burns would have set this roster up to not just contend in the NL West, but I think maybe push the Padres and the Diamondbacks for the number 2 spot in the NL West and maybe be a top wild card. Obviously, they have to get the offense in order still. Willie Adames goes a long way into doing so, but Corbin Burns is a perennial 200-plus inning pitcher. I get the velocity was down a little bit last year, which raised some concerns. But I would not, like if you're the Giants, and let's say Burns gives you an incredible 2025 season. In 2026, he gets hurt. The odds he bounces back, depending on the injury, are pretty high. He's a very durable pitcher. So I get you can talk about finances and whatnot. The Giants ownership, albeit, has spent more than they wanted to this offseason, which is a great sign. Thank you, Buster Posey. I think it's a deal that I would have done simply because you got to pay the piper to get elite players. In Corbin Burns, you can argue that was the best pitcher on the open market this offseason. I would have loved to have seen Logan Webb and Corbin Burns anchor this staff in 2025 and beyond.
Yeah, that would have been awesome to see the two of them with Robbie Ray out there. Because when we had Blake Snell, Robbie Ray, and Logan Webb healthy, that was the one time in the second half of the season where they actually started to make some noise and was like, hey, maybe we got something here. And then Ray went down, and then it just all kind of fizzled out because our offense was just terrible. Now, obviously, getting Willie Adames, I think, will help a lot because they need more offense in this team like you would never believe. But it doesn't stop there. I mean, look, we don't know where Fitzgerald fits in. He might be your second baseman. He might be, I know he played shortstop last year, but obviously you got Adames to fill that in. We still have a hole at first base. My thing is, I think the Niners, I think the Giants should go all in on Pete Alonso. That's a guy I would love to see at first base. But again, I don't know if Alonso is one of those guys where he's like, oh, well, hey, I want to opt out after a year or after 2 years. And if that's the case, then is it really worth it going after a guy like him? What do you think about Pete Alonso coming to the Giants? Would that be a good move in helping this team get back to where it needs to be at?
I mean, it's hard to say you don't want a player that can hit 35 or 40 home runs a season in your lineup. Like, that's like a duh. Like, of course you want that. I also think the Giants need an extra thumper in that lineup, primarily at first base. I think Alonso, unfortunately, with what he's asking, is not going to get this Prince Fielder-esque type deal that he wants, according to his agent, Scott Boras. That said, if he wants to come here for a 1-for-1, a 1-year deal and maximize him and to see what you can get out of him, I would love that. I'm okay with taking a 1-year rental for Pete Alonso. And if he sucks this year and he wants to come back in 2026, cool. But I'm not willing to commit, $150, $200 million for a player that he really isn't a great defender. He's probably a DH going forward, which is fine. That said, what he brings to you is essentially 35 home runs, a relatively okay average, a lot of home runs, but he's not going to steal bases. He's not going to play great defense. Yeah. And then it leads to the question of, okay, if you sign Alonso and he'll be your DH, what do you do with Flores, who's playing first base again this year, which I think is a more prevalent issue compared to getting Alonso? I'm for that 100% on a short-term deal, but my bigger questions kind of resolve around what's happening at first base. Like, that is a massive question.
Yeah. Huge. I mean, you got Wilmer Flores. You got, what's his name? It's eluding me. What's that?
Lamont Wade Jr.
Lamont Wade Jr. Thank you. And Lamont Wade had a good year last year, first half. He was batting well over 300. He was getting on base like crazy. Then he got hurt. And then it's like, where did he go? He just sort of he got hurt and he was gone for so long that I was like, dude, is he still on the team? What's going on? It took him forever to get back. I was like, bro, what are you doing? But I don't know if that's the guy I want to move forward with at first base in Lamont Wade. Now, obviously, Yastrzemski is more of a stopgap. Your outfield still consists of Jung Ho Lee and Elliot Ramos, probably in left field. So yeah, I get why they brought back Yastrzemski, and they still need a right fielder, and so he's someone that can fill in for that spot. A guy like Bryce Eldridge is still in your system. I don't know if he's able to really contribute this year at the start of the year. It's possible, but more like maybe second half of the year, if not next year. But this guy looks really, really good. The Giants did make a move, however, in signing Justin Verlander to a 1-year deal. A 1-year deal pending physical. And he's a future Hall of Famer, yes, and he turns 42 next month. That's like, oh boy. But what'd you think about the signing of Justin Verlander?
In regards to the on-the-field production, I'm not sure how much left he has to offer. I don't think this move in signing Verlander was for that, though. Yes, obviously you want him to be a guy that can start 20 games for you and go out there and, shove every 5 days. That said, I think this move, and I think Buster saw this, and I'm sure it's been a well kind of tossed around idea in comparison of Randy Johnson in 2009 with Matt Cain and Tim Lincecum in the young rotation they had, the impact he had on those guys, which who knows exactly how much of an impact he had, but it certainly was something to them. I think Buster saw that, and I think he sees a rotation that has, he has two kind of slotted in. You're going to be starters next year in Webb and Ray. You bring in Verlander. He's probably the 2 or 3 in 2025. But besides them, it's a lot of question marks. Even one of the highest paid guys in Jordan Hicks, is he a starter for a whole half? Can he start the entire year? Can Verlander help maybe show him or teach him how to kind of save his arm for 150 plus innings a year? Time will tell, but maybe he becomes a bullpen piece in the second half of the season to aid a Camilo Doval or a Ryan Walker in the 7, 8, and 9 innings. So, and then you get into Kyle Harrison and Hayden Birdsong and Mason Black and all these other guys, Tristan Beck, like so many other guys that are seemingly finding themselves being these 4A type players trying to break through that glass ceiling and reach their true potential. And you're hoping that Verlander, even if he can give you 120 innings next year, and he can give you 12 to 15, 12 to 13 starts, but be a mentor for all of these young arms. And he can even help Logan Webb, who has missed the Cy Young twice. Finally maybe get one. I love this move. The only drawback is having Ben Verlander tweet about the Giants and the Dodgers now, which is Justin's brother. It is like the worst part of this. I have to actively follow him on Twitter and X now. And it's like, I don't want to, because you're a Shohei just shoving down my throat kind of Twitter person, but I'm all for it. I don't know how you don't like this move. It makes sense. It's a 1-year deal, $15 million. It's not going to cost them much. And it could be his last year in San Francisco or his entire career. And why not pay to see a future Hall of Famer out there on the mound every single week at Oracle Park in 2025? I am completely on board with that.
I found these images of, potential rotation. I found a couple of them. This is by Fox Sports. And all of them had Jordan Hicks as like the 4th or 5th starter. Personally, I know they brought him in last year under Farhan. Farhan said, yeah, he's going to be a starter. Look, after the first, 2 months of the year, 3 months, 2.5, you could see that his arm strength was diminishing every single game. There was a struggle to get through 4 innings, get through 5 innings. I don't think this guy really is a starter, even though he wants to be. To me, this guy, if you put him in the bullpen, and now you got Ryan Walker, Doval, Jordan Hicks, to me, that makes a much more formidable bullpen. Sean Jelly is also in that bullpen. He could be a starter for all we know, too. The guy's like almost 7 feet tall. But I think you have to get one more guy in here. I don't think you can lean on Jordan Hicks or lean on, we got Verlander. So you got Webb, Ray, Verlander. That's pretty good 1, 2, 3. No, it's not. It's just all right. But these guys, Ray, Verlander, have shown you that they have the potential to suffer from injuries. Ray came back, he pitched really well, but then he got hurt. Jordan Hicks has some issues in terms of his longevity into the season. Can he last an entire season? He couldn't do it last year. He was convinced he could. Kyle Harrison, I love Kyle Harrison, but him as the 5th starter, I like that. If he's your number 2 starter, then you're like, okay, hold on. He's going to get there, but he needs a little bit more. I still want them to get somebody else. Obviously, there's Roki Sasaki, which I don't think he'll come here. I think if Corbin Burns would have signed a contract with us, I think maybe then he would have said, well, hey, wait a minute. They got Burns. This is more attractive, but everything tells me he's going to end up in either San Diego or the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Because why? I mean, if you're him, you're like, why wouldn't I want to join a team that has Shohei Ohtani and all these, what's his name, Yamamoto and all these guys? Like, why not?
There is something to be said
disgusting.
though with Logan Webb being a multi-time Cy Young finalist. Ray won the Cy Young in the AL with the Blue Jays, I believe, maybe the Mariners. I'm forgetting. Then Verlander's won it twice, former MVP. Not to mention the Giants and San Francisco itself have one of the most untapped Japanese markets in the entire country.
I know.
I get it. You got LA and, you have Shohei and Yamamoto. The San Diego has Darvish, who is probably one of the greatest Japanese pitchers ever. Him and Sasaki are close. Not to mention Jung-Hoo Lee's also here. Like, I think if the Giants could, I think they'd rather pay for Sasaki. Like, if, say, Sasaki wasn't kind of held back by a hard international pool bonus cap, I think they'd give him $15 a year compared to Verlander. I think they would. He's 26 years old. He's young. And I think in regards to making money, the ownership group wants to make some money. Sasaki can open up and untap a market that is vast. And maybe in the playoffs, if you play the Dodgers, you can have the entire country of Japan tuned in to watch Giants and Dodgers, Shohei against Sasaki. Yeah. That'd be incredible to watch.
Or even Yamamoto if he's out there pitching as well.
Yeah.
We're talking with Sterling Bennett, host of 49ers Access, and he covers sports for 957 The Game. The Giants seems like we have to get one more pitcher. I'm sorry. I can't go into the season with this rotation and think, yeah, we're going to compete. I don't. I feel like this rotation is that's going to slowly but surely fall apart. When we talk about the age of Verlander, the health concerns with Robbie Ray, Jordan Hicks not being able to last the entire season and ended up in the bullpen last year. So I still think they should get somebody else. I don't know if we're going to get Roki Sasaki. I would love that. But let's say, do you think the Giants are a team that will be able to get two more stars, or do you think it's one or the other? It's either going to be one more bat, one more pitcher, or you think they'll do both? I think they'll do one or the other. I can see them getting neither one of them at that, but I'm just saying if they were to get one, it would be one or the other. They won't try to go after both of them.
I think they'll try. I think you see how aggressive they've been this offseason. There was reports, I believe, by Andrew Baggerly of The Athletic. It may have been Alex Pavlovich of NBC Sports talking about how they were involved in the Garrett Crochet conversation. They were uncomfortable with how much they were willing to offer for Garrett Crochet. They were in on Corbin Burns. They weren't in on Soto, but they paid a heavy price tag for Willy Adames early and got ahead of the wave of the post-Soto signing. They have been in on Kyle Tucker. Like, they've been trying to get another bat. And
that would have been great. Kyle Tucker. Oh my God.
It would have been awesome.
Yeah.
But I kind of think they're done with the pitching staff. I think they're willing to ride this 6-man rotation, and they'll mix in players. Hayden Birdsong isn't even pictured there.
He should be
well enough to, I think, earn a spot in the rotation last year. I think you can save Verlander, Ray, and Hicks, and even Kyle Harrison, who may or may not be on a pitch count again this year, by implementing a 6-man rotation, but I know it's unlikely. They can mix and match with all they have a lot of depth at pitching, and I like that a lot. It's young depth, but I do like that. But I also believe there is a possible avenue they can trade for a bat compared to signing one. I wouldn't mind a player like Jorge Polanco, who's a free agent to play second base, coming off an injury, wants to kind of rehash and rebuild his stock and value. Ha-Seong Kim's still out there. I wouldn't be against that still. That said, again, my mind just goes to first base. I don't think they're on the Anthony Santander market. He's a DH and only a DH only. His power play, certainly, but the on-base percentage is pretty low. Doesn't give you an average. He is a home run or nothing kind of player. I'm not sure if you want to sign to that kind of bat in Oracle Park. But if you listen to what Buster Posey talked about in his introductory press conference, and I always go back to this, he talked about wanting to sign free agents and acquire players that have the mindset of, I want to drive in runs. And there aren't many people like that out there. Adames hits that to a T. Chapman's extension hits that to a T. And with not many guys else out there like that, I think the trade market makes a lot more sense. If it's me and I'm looking at teams that want pitching, The Angels need some pitching. They signed a handful of veterans this year, but the Manasian brothers now are GMs. Zach Manasian's brother Perry is the GM of the Angels. Maybe trying to go out and get Taylor Ward, an outfielder who can get you 20 home runs a year, makes some sense. They need pitching. Here's Tristan Beck and David VR. To me, that sounds great. Give him a mid-level prospect or not, and your rather weak farm system, but I think that can still play. I would also call the Red Sox about Tristan Casas, although that seems like a long shot. But the one move I have been clamoring for all offseason is calling the Baltimore Orioles and saying, what do you want for Ryan Mountcastle? They have to win now. That young, controllable core, albeit is vast, it is deep in the farm system. Mountcastle is blocking Kobe Mayo. They just brought back, I'm forgetting his name currently, but their left-handed platoon first baseman. I think there is a way Ryan Mountcastle gets moved this offseason. I think it makes sense. And if you can give the Orioles a starting pitcher, maybe add some depth, heck, maybe even it includes Mike Yastrzemski, I'm cool with that. I'd rather rock with Luis Matos playing right field or Wade Meckler playing right field or signing some smaller guy out there to go help my outfield. But also, I want to get Ryan Mountcastle in the orange and black, just not in Baltimore, in San Francisco.
He's already in orange and black.
Right.
And Mountcastle had 13 home runs, batted 271 last season with 63 RBIs and 54 runs. So and that'd be a good as well at first base. He could play first base or left field. But I would rather see a guy like Luis Matos, who I think he just won an award in the Venezuelan League.
MVP, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, look, that doesn't always translate to he's gonna kill it up here. But I think he showed enough last season that you got to give this guy a shot. You can't just keep rolling out there with, okay, well, some days we'll go Yastrzemski, some days we'll go Matos. I think you just got to play the guy and just get him out there and see what he can do for you.
He's 22.
He went on a stretch last year where he was killing the ball, and I thought this was going to be his breakout year. And then he sort of cooled off, and then of course, like Farhan does, he sent him back down. It was like, oh god. So
blocked by Austin Slater.
And then they traded him, which I was like, I don't even know why he was on this team. God bless him, but still.
For Alex Wilson, who then got reclaimed by the Mets afterwards.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, we just got rid of him, basically. So a lot to do for the Giants. I still think they need one batter or one pitcher. They need something in there. Hayden Burnsong should have been on this picture. I think he's more of their number 4 starter or number 5 starter. And I think Jordan Hicks needs to be in the bullpen. I don't think that Buster Posey will say, hey, you know what? Let's give him another shot in the rotation. No, I think he's going to say, no, he's a bullpen guy. Absolutely. Unless, of course, there's nobody else, but I still think that he'd be more effective out of the bullpen when you partner him with, the Rogers brothers. We still have both of them, don't we? I think we still do.
Tyler just signed for like 5.3 via arbitration today.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Taylor's still here. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. So you got the Rogers brothers. You got, Camilo Doval and Ryan Walker, who ended up being our best arm in the bullpen was Ryan Walker. I don't know what happened to Doval. He sort of fell off. But, I mean, look, even Buster Posey said, I'm not going to get rid of him because we still see him as a valuable piece of our roster moving forward. I thought was really, he didn't have to say that, but I thought that was really great that he did say that. And if Doval heard that, he's probably like, oh, awesome. This is like, I love this guy, it gives him a lot more confidence. So we'll see what they do. I'm still in the boat of get me Pete Alonso and all will be right. I think if we get Pete Alonso, it's going to improve this team dramatically. They might open the door for someone like Roki Sasaki to say, you know what? Let's go over there because you guys got Willie Adames, you got Pete Alonso, you still have Logan Webb and Robbie Ray. Let's go for it. So who knows? We'll see what they do as the season is quickly approaching. I think spring training starts at the end of next month.
Yeah, we're almost
there. Like right around the corner. It's crazy. Sterling, thank you so much for coming on here. I appreciate you doing 2 segments with me, Niners and Giants. You can follow Sterling over at 49ers Access Podcast, which is on YouTube. I think it's wherever you can find podcasts out there. Where else can they find you?
You can also find me on Twitter at 49ers_access or Instagram at 49ers.access.
.access. There we go. And guys, when we come back, we're going to talk about the Golden State Warriors and what they need to do to win this next game as they've lost 2 in a row. You're listening to the NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
The light is red, the kids are in bed, which means it is time for Mile High Musings with me, Aaron Yowell, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hello, sports fans. It's me, your boy Larry B, and I want to walk you through the world of sports. No, not just the mainstream major TV deal type sports, although those are important too. But let me be your guide through your journey of all sports, from college to the pros, the minors, and everything in between. Each week, we are talking sports galore with true diehards just like you from a hardcore fan's perspective that's sure to quench your thirst around leagues you may know all too well and some you may even discover here. That's right, sports fans. If you love sports of all kinds, enjoy hearing amazing sports stories, and respect all sports because you know how difficult any of them can be to play or compete in, then this is your show. Join me, your boy Larry B, on the defining moment each week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, and let the sports come to you.
All that is sports. And now we're going to move on to our last segment of the show, which is about the Golden State Warriors. Now, Golden State's had a rough go at it. They've lost 2 in a row, and it hasn't even been close. They lost to Sacramento Kings 129-99, and it was not good. And they were at home, too, here in San Francisco. And then they lost on the 7th to the Miami Heat, a final score of 114-98. Without Jonathan Kuminga being there, and that you just rely on Steph Curry, you do not have enough firepower. This team is struggling to score. This team, at times lately, has been playing some good defense, but they can't score. Their scoring is awful. And something needs to change. I've been talking about this every single week. They got to get somebody in here to help Steph Curry. I saw a trade out there, a trade proposal that somebody put out there that I thought was a trade that I would do. I was like, man, I would do that in a heartbeat. I mean, like, why not? You know? Let me see if I can find it. But I mean, look, it was such a big trade that I was like, man, this would alter everything if the Warriors pulled this one off. And it was a trade that involved Kevin Durant. Now, obviously, look, in order for you to get Kevin Durant, you'd have to give up a lot. And who knows if the Suns will be willing to even, entertain this trade. But here it is right here. I'm going to pull this up. Let's see. There we go. Trade idea. Suns get Buddy Hield, Jonathan Kuminga, Kevon Looney, and Andrew Wiggins, and the Warriors would get Kevin Durant. I still think that someone like a Brandon Pajemski would probably have to be involved with that trade. But I would do this trade in a heartbeat. I would want Kevin Durant back so freaking bad. That'd be great. Because we need a scorer. We need a second threat. They don't have one. Even if they had Klay Thompson, it still wouldn't have been enough to be a second threat out on the court. The last time he won a championship, they had Jordan Poole running around. He was your second option, a viable second option. Draymond Green plays his ass off, but he's not a scoring option. He's taking way too many threes. Granted, his percentage is up this year than last year, but that's not where you got to be at. You can't be relying on Draymond Green's threes to keep you in the game. That's a recipe for disaster. Let's take a look at the box score for the Warriors against the Miami Heat, which happened a couple days ago. And so here it is right here. Green, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, 7 points. That's what he normally does. That's what makes him so valuable to this team. But Wiggins, 9 points. Trece Jackson-Davis has been playing real good lately. He had 19 points. Stephen Curry, 31 points. Dennis Schroeder. We got this guy to make up the loss of DeAnthony Melton. He only scored 5 points. The guy has yet to have a game where he makes a huge impact scoring-wise. So it's still not working out. And then the bench, I mean, that's not production. You look over at Miami Heat, you're looking at Nikola Jovic, 20 points. Alec Burks, former Warrior, 11 points. Duncan Robinson, 12 points. You look over here, 5, 11, 6, 3, 0, 2. It's not enough. It's not going to get it done. Especially with Kuminga injured. He's supposed to miss at least 3 weeks with his sprained ankle. If they don't make a move quick, this season is going to be over before the All-Star break. Because they can't score. They can't score. Yeah, Steph Curry scored 31. That's what you expect from Steph Curry, even though he's already made comments that the clock is ticking on his career. That he doesn't know how much longer his career will go based on his age and his injuries. Everyone keeps saying, you got to take advantage of Steph Curry while he's still around. Surround him with talent. This is your last chance. You got to do it, Dunleavy. Personally, I still think if you can't get somebody to help him out, like a Kevin Durant, if you can't pull something like this off, which I would love this move, by the way. I thought it will happen. If you can't do something like that, then you have to entertain the idea of trading Steph Curry. You do. Because you could probably get a lot back for him. Especially from a contender who wants to win now. Because right now, if they don't get a pretty big player in return, this team isn't going anywhere. It's not. They can't score. They can't do a lot of things right. It's hard to watch the Warriors. When they win, they look good. When they win, they look good. When they lose, they look awful. And something has to change. What that is, I don't know. Jimmy Butler is not the answer. I don't think that's the right move for the Warriors. I don't think that puts them back in the playoff hunt. Kevin Durant obviously would. That's a superstar. There's also been talk about Zion Williams. The Warriors, according to Marcus Spears, he is not on their radar. They are not trying to acquire Zion Williamson. Probably because he's going to want their entire team in return, or the Pelicans would. So who is a target for the Warriors? I would love for it to be Kevin Durant, but it's not. And in the meantime, they can't score. It's really, really hard to watch. It's hard to watch. It's hard to watch every game because it's like, oh my God. And I think that I would entertain a trade like this if I'm the Warriors because, I mean, at this point, you only got Steph Curry for so long. If you're not going to do Kevin Durant, I would do this. Look at that. You get Giannis Antetokounmpo, and they get Wiggins, Kuminga, Podziemski, Lindy Waters, and 2 first-round picks. And that would put a marquee player on the Warriors. That would be huge. I would do this trade in a heartbeat. I would say goodbye to all these guys. Now granted, look, Kuminga is only, 22 years old? He has huge upside. But I don't think he's the right fit with a guy like Steph Curry. You get a guy like Giannis in here, that changes everything. And that gives the Bucks a future player, a future star in Kuminga, a future, point guard in Pajemski. It helps them out a lot, and they get 2 first-round picks. Now, if this doesn't work out for the Warriors, then, well, they're going to be in the hole for a while, but they were already going to be there anyway. You might as well go for broke and try and get yourself a superstar, because right now, it's not looking too good. It's not looking good at all. They play, the Warriors do play tonight at 4 o'clock Pacific time on the road against the Detroit Pistons. Warriors are 18-18. Pistons are 19-18. So we'll see how they do tonight against Detroit, but they got to make a move. They got to make some noise, and they got to bring some talent in here to really spark this team, because I'm sorry, it worked out early on. We were 12-3 with a big, 11-man rotation, 12-man rotation. That was great. It didn't last. And now, where do we go from here? They got to make a move. So we'll see how they do tonight. 4 o'clock Pacific time against the Pistons in Detroit. Warriors are 18-18. Can you believe they started out 12-3? That is just bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. Guys, that's going to do it for the NorCal Sports Report here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I want to thank Sterling Bennett, host of 49ers Access Podcast, and Travis Niners for 95.7 The Game. I want to thank him for coming out here and dropping a fire stream. If you want to see the show, it'll be up on my channel, Dre Area Sports, and always it'll be up on IE Sports Radio over on YouTube. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to IE Sports Radio. I'll be dropping clips of this episode throughout the week. You'll find them on Dre Area Sports, and now you will also find them over on IE Sports Radio. The Niners need to get their defensive coordinator house in order. They got to get someone in here fast, so they can't be waiting around for Robert Saleh. They got to get someone in now and get the ball rolling. Giants need to make some more moves. Warriors need to make a move in a bad way. That needs to happen quick, because otherwise they're going to lose track of the season very, very fast. I want to thank Larry B for putting this on, IE Sports Radio. We'll be live again next week, Tuesday. Actually, I might move to Thursday. We'll see, but we'll be live again next week. Make sure you subscribe to IE Sports Radio. Subscribe to Dre Area Sports. Check out my website, nicotina.net. That's where you can become a member of Dre Area Sports. Check that out. And we'll see you guys next time.